Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. A very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing absolutely fine. I welcome you all to today's session of the Hindu Newspaper Analysis. I hope all of you are doing good and your preparation is going on in full speed. Before we begin our analysis, just a very quick reminder, if you have still not subscribed to our channel, please do hit the subscribe button. As you know, starting 2023, we have begun a lot of new initiatives on our YouTube channel, most of them coming live to you. So in order for you to get notified about all those classes, you need to hit the subscribe button. Also, make sure that you invite as many of your friends who are preparing for the UPSC examination as possible here in these live classes. Also, before I begin, another reminder, tomorrow, that is Wednesday, 8 p.m. As you know, we have the international relations this week. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. we bring this to you where we discuss some of the most important stories related to international relations. So don't forget to join us for that as well tomorrow at 8 p.m. Now let's begin without any further delay. What are the important articles from the Hindu newspaper that we wanted to discuss? The first article that we have taken up is from page number 6 of the Hindu newspaper today, that is talking about the Employee Provident Fund scheme, or the EPS. Now, as you know, the Employee Provident Fund also has a component called the Employee Provident Pension Scheme. More specifically, this article is about this Employee Provident Pension Scheme. Now, before I take you into what the article is saying, let us quickly try and understand what this issue is all about. Multiple articles have in fact been written on it. Let's try and understand this. If you are working right now, you would know from your salary, a part of your salary is deducted that is contributed to something called Provident Fund. Now, what exactly is Provident Fund? All the governments around the world have a responsibility to ensure social security for their citizens. Social security means at an age where you will not be able to work, let's say you are 60, 65, 70, you don't have an active income. At that point of time also, you should have certain money for you. With that in mind, the government of India deducts a small part of your salary which goes into something called Provident Fund or PF, and your employer, that is a company that you work for, they also contribute a similar part of your salary to this Provident Fund. Now, usually at the time that you retire, you can withdraw some of that money. That money is invested by the government. There's a good interest rate that you get on it, and at an old age you will be able to withdraw that money. In simple terms, that is the idea of Provident Fund. Okay. Now the government thought that apart from Provident Fund, we should also have something called Employee Provident Scheme, under which we should actually give pension as well. So Government of India initiated a pension scheme also related to this Employee Provident Fund only. Let's try and understand how this works. Okay. Now what happens is, when you get your salary, about 12% of your basic salary plus your DNS allowance, about 12% of that from your basic salary plus DNS allowance is deducted from your salary and it goes into Provident Fund. The company that you work for example, let's say I work for BYJU'S. So from my end, my employer will also contribute the same amount of money to my PF. So the PF, that is the Provident Fund, actually gets contribution from the person, the individual, and the company that the person is working for. Now what happens is, from this 12% that my company had actually given, 8.33% goes into some other fund that is called the pension fund. And from this pension fund, you will be able to get the salary later on. This is the simple idea behind how the pension scheme works. Okay. Now what is the problem here? The problem is the government of India had actually put a cap on how much pension can you get depending upon your salary. So this contribution of 8.33% or 12% that you make, the government of India had put a limit of 15,000 as pensionable salary. Meaning that the pensionable salary on the basis of which you will get pension was fixed at 15,000, not more than that. Why? See, the idea is simple. Let's assume you earn 2 lakh rupees per month. Now, from 2 lakh rupees per month, let's say you contribute about 12% to the PF. Then at the time of your pension, the government would have to give you a very high pension. Government did not want that, because the idea of the government was that this employee pension scheme is for people who are not earning a lot of money. It was never for those people who actually earn a lot of money, because those who already earn a lot of money have other ways for their pension. So Government of India had earlier given a limit that 15,000 maximum will be your pensionable salary. Even if you earn more than that, your contribution will only be on the basis of 15,000. Even if you earn 2 lakh, 5 lakh, doesn't matter. Your contribution will be on the basis of 15,000 only. Then in 2014, this changed. In 2014, the Government of India made changes in this scheme. In 2014, the Government of India said, now even if you earn more than 15,000, you can now contribute more money to the pension fund and you will get more pension. So let me again explain what happened. Up till September 2014, you could only contribute as 15,000 as your maximum salary. Doesn't matter how much you earned, you would only be able to contribute as per 15,000. That is your pensionable salary. But in 2014, government said, even if you earn more money, even if you earn 2 lakh, 3 lakh, 5 lakh rupees per month, you can also take part in the scheme by contributing 12% of your actual salary of 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupees. The government said this is optional. Not everyone has to do that. Let's say if you're earning 1 lakh rupees per month, you can decide, do I want to go ahead with 15% only or 15,000 only, or do I want to contribute more money? That was the option given to you. Now the problem was EPFO, that is the organization that runs this entire thing. The EPFO, Employee Provident Fund organization, they had given a time limit. For example, they had said within 1 year, if you want to contribute more money, let us know. If you don't want to contribute more money, let us know. But within 1 year, for example, you will have to tell us. Now is the question, the entire thing why article has been written is this. Let's try and understand. The EPFO had given a limit that within, let's say, 6 months, within 1 year, you have to tell us whether you want to contribute more money or not. Now what has happened is some government officials from Himachal Pradesh Tourism Development Corporation. It's a government organization. Himachal Pradesh Tourism Development Corporation. Some employees from this corporation went to the court saying that we were not able to opt in for the scheme. We wanted to contribute more money, but we missed the time limit. Now please allow us to get more pension. These employees of Himachal Pradesh Tourism Development Corporation said, we missed the time limit. We did not opt in as per the time limit given by EPFO, but now we would like to opt in. Please now allow us. The government and EPFO said, no, we will not do that. The time limit is over. Now you can only contribute with maximum of 15,000 limit. This matter went to the court. This matter first went to High Court, then the matter went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court also has taken the side of the government staff. The Supreme Court also has said that anyone can still opt in for this scheme. Anyone who wants to contribute more than 15,000 as their pensionable salary can still opt in for the scheme. EPFO cannot just set a random time limit. So in simple terms, this is what has happened. The Supreme Court has given the order against EPFO in favor of the government staff. So the question is, why is this article written? Because the Supreme Court order was given 2 months back. 2 months back, Supreme Court gave this order to EPFO that you have to allow everyone who wants to contribute more money. But the problem is, as per the author, EPFO has still not implemented the order. EPFO is still saying, okay, we'll think about it. Let us see, we can do this or not. In fact, EPFO has given a notification saying that we will decide whether we want to accept new people into the scheme or not. EPFO has in fact given conditions saying that we will decide if we want to allow higher pension or not. We will allow if we want to keep 15,000 only as a pensionable salary limit or higher. EPFO says it is our discretion. This is why this article has been written. In simple terms, as per the author, EPFO is not following what the Supreme Court had ordered. Supreme Court has said very, very clearly that any government employee who wants to contribute more money than 15,000 as the salary should be allowed to contribute. They should be allowed to earn a higher pension, but EPFO has still not been doing that. Now, this is a clear case of contempt of court. What is contempt of court? As you know, contempt of court means when you are not abiding by the order given by the Supreme Court. Now, if you actually see, as per the rules, the Supreme Court can actually punish the authorities. The Supreme Court can actually say that you are not abiding by the order. This is a contempt of court. But so far, the Supreme Court has not done this. So far, the Supreme Court is still seeing what exactly is EPFO doing. The author here says that EPFO must learn from this, and EPFO must ensure that those who have gone to the court and other government employees who want to opt in for a higher pension slab, they should be allowed to do that before the Supreme Court comes in and puts a contempt of court charge against EPFO. This is especially important for those government employees who were not earning a very high salary. Because those government employees who were not really earning a very high salary, for them also it is a major concern. Now, I'll tell you one more very interesting problem that is happening here. Let's assume that you are working in the government. Now, how is your pension decided? Let's say you retire at the age of 58. How much pension will you get? How is that decided? The usual government rule is 50% of your last salary. This is the usual government rule. Meaning that if at the time of my retirement, the time that I retired, let's assume my salary was rupees 1 lakh. So my pension automatically will become rupees 50,000. Okay? That was the usual rule. And it has been followed for many, many years. But the interesting part is EPFO has changed it. Do you know what EPFO has done? EPFO has said that we will not accept this. Why? Let's try and take example of what EPFO is saying. EPFO is saying, let us assume that you were working at a salary of only 50,000 rupees and only 2 months before retirement. Only 2 months before retirement, you got an increment in the salary and your salary became 1 lakh. So EPFO is saying only 2 months before the retirement, you got the salary raise. Then how can we give you so much pension? No, we will not give you so much pension. Did you understand? Let me try and repeat this. Earlier, the salary was decided as the last, pension was decided as 50% of the last salary that you drew. But now EPFO said, no, this is a problem. Your last salary might be higher. So how will we calculate that? EPFO now says we will decide by taking an average of last 5 years of your salary. So EPFO is saying from the age of 54 till the end of 58 or 53 to 58, in the last 5 years of your service, we will see what was your average salary. On the basis of that, half of that will become your pension. So EPFO wants to decide pension on the basis of last 5 years of average salary that you actually had, not your last salary. This is again a problem. See, salary usually increases every year just by a small percentage, but it will be increased by every year, right? But then the problem here is, if you take average of last 5 years, then obviously average will be lower than your last salary, so your pension will also become lower. That is also a big concern that people have. Government employees want that their salary should be on the last, or their pension should be on the last salary that they drew and not the complete average of the 5 years. Now, I also wanted to give you some more information about EPFO. I see some question in the chat also. What is EPFO? EPFO in simple terms is a government organization that looks into Provident Fund and that looks into the Provident Fund pension scheme as well. EPFO here stands for Employee Provident Fund Organization. It's a statutory organization that came into being in 1952. Which ministry does it work under? It works under Ministry of Labour and Employment of the Government of India, and it is one of the world's largest social security organizations. As I told you in the beginning, social security means the government has to ensure that at an age when people are not able to earn, people don't have their own livelihood, own pension or own salary, even then they do have some kind of money that they can actually spend, and they can be dependent on that. For all of that, social security programs are being run. Now this EPS, that is, as I told you, the employee pension scheme, all the details are given here. As I explained, both employee and the employer contribute 12% to the Provident Fund. The maximum is on the basis of 15,000 and not more than that. Out of the 12% contributed by my employer, by my company, 8.33% will go to the pension scheme. There is one more point here. Central government also contributes 1.16% of the employee's monthly salary. This matter is still not resolved completely, meaning that even now the EPFO has not clarified whether or not they will open up the registration for a higher slab after the Supreme Court order or not. So we still have to see whether it is applied or not. The next article from the Hindu newspaper is on an ongoing battle in Delhi that we have been seeing for many years now. As you know, for many years now, there has been a conflict between the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi and the Delhi Chief Minister. This has especially come to news ever since the Aam Aadmi Party has come to power in Delhi, where they have been alleging that they are not being allowed to do their work properly. On the other hand, the central government says that Delhi is a union territory, meaning that the central government, the union government, should have the last say in how Delhi should function. I'm sure all of you are very updated about this debate. In simple terms, the Delhi government that has been democratically chosen by the people say that because we are elected by the people, we should have the power to take decisions, to decide how the government will function. On the other hand, Lieutenant Governor, who is appointed by the President, says that I am the boss here, I will take all the decisions. Now, although there have been multiple points of conflict between the two, the present point of conflict that we have is, under this, the Delhi government is saying that Lieutenant Governor is not signing on most of our files. Whatever decisions they take, the Lieutenant Governor overrules those decisions. The Delhi government is saying that we want to send our government school teachers to Finland. Why Finland? Because Finland, Norway, Sweden, these are some of those nations where their education system, especially the school education system, is well renowned around the entire world. So Delhi government is saying that we want to send our school teachers to go there and to train, but the Lieutenant Governor is not allowing that. Lieutenant Governor is asking what is the cost benefit analysis, why should we spend all that money, etc., etc. Just a few days back, we had the first meeting of the Delhi municipality where the members had to elect a mayor. Even then, there was fighting between the BJP and the AAP councillors, and since then, the Aam Aadmi Party has been alleging that the Lieutenant Governor is not allowing us to go ahead and elect the mayor. Now, rather than going into political parties conflict, rather than going into AAP versus BJP, because that is not our concern, we will focus more on the administration of the National Capital Territory, the NCT. We'll be discussing more about how exactly is it that Delhi is different from other parts of the country. I'm sure all of you know that now we can watch live proceedings of the Supreme Court. Now, I'm telling this to you because I did see live proceedings of the Supreme Court a few days back, because there is an ongoing matter in the Supreme Court being heard by a constitutional bench headed by the Chief Justice of India, where he is hearing the matter about Delhi government versus Lieutenant Governor only. The Chief Justice of India, in fact, very clearly asked that if all the decisions have to be taken by the LG only, if all the decisions have to be taken by the central government only, then why do we even have an elected government in Delhi? We should not have an elected government in Delhi if that is the case. On the other hand, the government's point of view is that that is not the case. The government's point of view is very simple. The government says that union territory, by definition, union territory means territory of the union, meaning that at the end, the union government has the power to take the final call. That is what the central government is saying. As for the central government, they have the power to decide what will happen in Delhi and how the administration will run in Delhi. Now, let's take both the sides one by one. Let's take an example of what the Delhi government is saying. Delhi government is saying, if you look at the constitution, if you look at Article 239 of the constitution, in very simple terms, the Delhi government should have the power to make rules and regulations except on three important matters. Except on three matters. What are these three matters? These three matters are police, land, law and order. So Delhi government is saying, except these three, we should be the one who should be deciding all the things. On these three, LG can decide, we don't have a problem. They are saying that even the constitution says this. And not just the constitution, in fact in 2018 the Supreme Court also said this. That Delhi government should have the final say, except on these three matters where the LG can decide on the basis of recommendation of the central government. What is it that the central government is saying? The central government says that no, that is not the case. Central government is saying that union territory means extension of the union only. Meaning that the union government should have the power to decide how exactly should Delhi run. Now, the Lieutenant Governor and the Chief Minister, both of these are supposed to have weekly meetings. So both of them decided we will have weekly meetings every Friday, but even that is not happening. Why? The Lieutenant Governor says Chief Minister is not available. Chief Minister is the one that is actually going on election campaigning. He's going to Gujarat, he's going to Punjab. When I want to meet him, he's not available. On the other hand, the Chief Minister is saying, no, that is not true. When I come to meet him, the LG is not available. So it's a matter of blame game actually happening when one side is saying that the other side is not allowing us to work, and on the other side is saying that no, that is not true. What the central government has done is, the central government has actually in 2021 passed a law under which they are trying to take away most of the powers of the Delhi government. How? Let's try and understand. In 2021, the Parliament passed a law called Government of Delhi Amendment Act of 2021. Please try and understand this. Government of Delhi Amendment Act 2021, this was a law that was passed by the Parliament. Now, in this law, the biggest point that was mentioned was that from now onwards, whenever anyone says Delhi government, then Delhi government would actually mean Lieutenant Governor and not the Chief Minister. The law says, whenever the words Delhi government are used, the government of Delhi will mean Lieutenant Governor. Meaning that if someone says Delhi government will decide this, Delhi government will decide that, Delhi government will do this, Delhi government will do that, that means it is the Lieutenant Governor that will decide these kind of things and not the Chief Minister. This law, when it was introduced in 2021, obviously did not go well with the Delhi government. They appealed against it in the Supreme Court also, but so far no decision has been taken. The central government is saying, as per this law, whatever executive decisions have to be taken in Delhi, they have to be taken by the Lieutenant Governor only. I also wanted to give you a timeline of all these events that happened between the CM and the Lieutenant Governor. As I told you, in 2018, the Supreme Court took the side of Delhi government, saying that Delhi government should have the power to decide on matters except public order, police and land. All the other things should be decided by the CM. On these three issues, the Lieutenant Governor should be able to take a call. However, reacting to this, the central government, as we just discussed, passed the 2011 law, and in the 2021 law, and in the 2021 law, we saw how the entire definition of Delhi government has been changed, and now Delhi government would refer to Lieutenant Governor. Now, let me ask you one very simple, straightforward question here, and I want you just to tell me the answer in yes or no right now, and then maybe you can comment on it later. A very simple question that Delhi government has been demanding for a long time is, should Delhi be given complete statehood? Now, when we say complete statehood, what we usually mean is Delhi government wants control over its land, Delhi government wants control over its police, they want control over its public order, etc. They want all these things to be under their control. Now, I would say 90% people are saying no in the chat, but there are a few people who are saying yes also. Okay. Now, let's try and understand this. I'll give you points of both pros and cons of how will it happen. Also, I am giving you a slight homework. I want you also to tell me in the comment section of the video after the class is over, what do you think, why exactly should Delhi be given statehood or why should it not be given statehood? Whatever your points are, do mention in the comments also, but let's try and understand. I'll give you both aspects of the story. Let's first see those sides of the story, or those people who say no, Delhi should not be given statehood. Let's say, first point, Delhi at the end of the day is national capital. Most of the important buildings, the most significant buildings, the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the Parliament, the Supreme Court, houses of Prime Minister, President, Vice President, all these are situated in Delhi. At a time when you have so much importance related to Delhi, how can you possibly have law and order of Delhi outside the purview of central government? You have to ensure that the central government controls it, because unfortunately something wrong happens in Delhi in terms of law and order, it will go against the entire image of India at an international level and not against the state government. So that is why law and order in the national capital at least has to be with the central government. Let me tell you one more point. Now, please do listen to this carefully, because in this debate of Delhi to be given statehood or not, there is one point that all of us ignore. That point is, yes, the Delhi government can say we want police, we want control of police, etc. But one thing that we don't understand is, because Delhi police right now comes under Union Home Ministry, their salary and pension also comes from Union government only. Tomorrow, if the Delhi police by chance comes under state government, the burden, the financial burden of their salary and their pension, if that actually goes to Delhi government, it will be almost unbearable for the Delhi government to handle. Because the pension bill, the salary bill that we have of Delhi police, if that now has to go from the coffers of the Delhi government, that will be very, very problematic, because Delhi does not have that kind of resources. That is again a point that we have never discussed. But that is not something that is feasible in the long run. Because see, for a size of territory that Delhi has a much larger police, and this is obvious. As I told you, Delhi has so many VIPs, so many important buildings, so Delhi police obviously is much, much more as compared to what it should be. But the reason why it is sustainable is because the union government is paying for that. If Delhi government has to pay, it will be very problematic. Then there are suggestions like, people say, why not have a New Delhi area? New Delhi area means an area where all these important buildings are located, MPs or Parliament, Supreme Court, President House, etc. Let's have a separate force for that area, and for other parts of Delhi, let's have a separate law and order, let's have a separate police. That is also something that people have suggested, but this doesn't really seem like a very feasible idea. Now, on the other hand, let me also give you some contrary examples. The contrary examples are that if you see around the world, usually it is not like national capitals are under the central government only. Let's look at US. In US, if you look at Washington DC, Washington DC does have a mayor. The mayor runs the city with a lot of powers. Look at UK. In UK, the London has a mayor. Mayor is the one that actually has most of the powers and not the central government. So it's not that we don't have examples around the world. There are examples around the world of big cities. Look at Paris. Paris has a mayor. Look at most of these big nations around the world that have their capital which are not controlled by the central government. They're actually run by local government. So that can also be a way forward. The other point in favor of giving statehood is, see, at the end of the day, what is democracy? The entire concept of democracy is, if people have elected their government, if people are the ones who have given vote to a certain political party to come in power, and if that government doesn't have the powers to even maintain law and order, then what is the entire point of having these elections? So all these are sides of the story, whether or not we should have statehood for Delhi or not. I hope you have enough points for both of these. Please make sure in the comment section of the video, do give an elaborate response from your end also, which side of the debate you are on and why exactly. Don't just write yes or no, do write in slight detail. The next article I want to take up is from the state of Kerala. The Kerala government, along with some other government also, I won't say Kerala alone, but Kerala government specifically has been criticizing the new electricity rules that were introduced by the government of India, but that did not pass. Just to remind you, in the month of August 2022, the government of India had introduced a bill to make changes in the electricity laws in India. However, that led to protests all across the country, especially by those people who work in the electricity department of respective state. They were not happy. After all that protest, what happened was that the government sent the bill to a standing committee. So far, that bill has not been passed. Now, those new rules that have come up, they have seen criticism from many states, in Kerala especially. Now, what exactly is the problem that Kerala has? Kerala government is saying, if you look at the new rules, the one rule, that is rule number 14, is problematic. Now, let's try and understand what is rule number 14. There is something called DISCOMs. DISCOM means Electricity Distribution Company. Let's try and understand this in very simple terms. So, you use electricity in your house, some company supplies electricity to you, but the bill that you get, the electricity bill that you get, doesn't come from that distribution company. So what happens is, the money that you pay, the electricity bill that you pay, will go to your state government. The state government will then give money to distribution companies, that is the DISCOMs. That is why when the state governments actually announce free electricity, almost every state government is now doing that. So when the state governments now announce free electricity, the DISCOM, distribution companies, are very unhappy with this. Why? The distribution companies say, oh, government is giving free electricity, but when we take money from the government, government is delaying our payment also. So electricity company says, the DISCOM says, that we are giving electricity to Delhi. Delhi is giving electricity to people. If people are not giving money to Delhi government, we are asking money to Delhi government is delaying our money as well. So that is happening in many states. The DISCOMs are not really happy about free electricity, etc. So now what is rule number 14? The rule number 14 says that from now onwards, the DISCOMs, that is the distribution companies, will be able to automatically take money from the consumer and not depend upon the state government. They will automatically take money from the consumer, and if there is any increase in the cost of electricity, if electricity manufacturing, if electricity production becomes expensive, then they can increase the bill of the people as well. If the purchasing cost of the electricity distribution company increases, they can pass on the cost to the consumer every month without giving any warning. This is what the Kerala government doesn't like. Let's try and understand why is it happening, because it's not that difficult to understand if you understand politics. See this. Let us assume that there is a state that has elections after 6 months, okay, or 7 months or 1 year, whatever. Now, if there are elections after 6 months or 1 year, would the state government want to increase your electricity bill? Obviously not. In the last 6 months to 1 year, in fact, citizens are in the best possible scenario, because no government will increase your expenditure. The fuel prices will not increase, electricity prices will not increase, gas price will not increase, nothing will increase in the last 6 to 8 months. Why? Because every political party knows that elections are now coming very close, so they can't anger the people, right? So let's assume this situation, that Kerala government would not want to increase your electricity bill nearby elections or when they think that they don't want to have a bad impression. At that time, electricity distribution company, DISCOM, automatically increases the bill by saying, no, electricity is expensive, so from next month onwards, I am increasing your bill. Next month again, we are increasing your bill, and Kerala government doesn't have the power to stop them. Do you think the Kerala government will like it? Obviously, they will not like it. The Kerala government or any state government wants to control how much money or how much expenditure is happening from the pocket of the people, so that they can freeze that expenditure, especially nearby the elections. But when you are allowing the DISCOM, when you are allowing the distribution companies to decide for themselves what exactly will be the bill, how to increase the bill, when to increase the bill, obviously the government will then have to bear the brunt in the upcoming elections, and they would not want that. So Kerala government is protesting against it, especially against rule number 14. They are saying that consumer interest will be the one that will be harmed. I'm not sure if it is the consumer interest or the government's interest, whatever will be harmed, but it is actually government's point is that the consumer's interest will be harmed. Now, this is why the Kerala government is saying that the rule 14 should go back. And this is not just Kerala government, many other companies are, or many other state governments also are protesting against it. Now, what is Kerala government saying? Kerala government is saying that in our state we have a lot of rains, we have multiple monsoon seasons. In the monsoon seasons, the government is saying that in the monsoon months, people usually do not purchase a lot of power. In the monsoon months, the temperature is lower, so people don't have to run a lot of appliances. But in the non-monsoon months, when the temperature is increasing, the people use a lot of power. So Kerala government is suggesting that while deciding when the electricity bill will increase, when will it decrease, at least we should keep in mind that in the non-monsoon months, power cost should be kept minimum, because in the non-monsoon months, people use more power. These kind of welfare decisions Kerala government wants to take, but as per rule number 14, these decisions will be outside the hands of the Kerala government now. So Kerala government is not happy with it. Now the question is, has it been implemented, these new rules? No, they have not been implemented so far. They are actually as I told you, these are still at the stage of the standing committee, but it might be passed very soon. Still, they have not been passed so far. Now this bill has many other rules as well. That is why there were a lot of protests. For example, if you see, private DISCOMs were allowed all across the country, private distribution companies were allowed. Earlier, private distribution companies were allowed in just a few parts of the country. Now private distribution companies will be allowed. Not just this, the bill says that as a consumer, I can choose from which company do I want to get electricity. Just like today, when you go and buy an air conditioner, when you go and buy your mobile SIM card, you can choose from which company you want to take services, right? But now the new bill says that you can choose which company is it that you want to get electricity from. You like Tata, okay, I'll go with Tata. You want Adani, you can go with Adani. You want any government company, you can go with government DISCOMs as well. So now consumers would have the right to decide from which company would you want to get your electricity. For example, let's say you get electricity from Tata. Then you think, no, this is not good. Why? Because they have a lot of fluctuations, the voltage increases, decreases, they also have a lot of power cut. So in that case, you might opt for some other company. So this is giving more power and more choices to the consumer. That is also a provision in the new bill that has been introduced. Also, when the private DISCOM players come in, obviously at the end of the day, you will have that free power, etc. will go away eventually. Because when you have private companies handling all of that, obviously they will not come up just like, or they will not work like the government is working. For them, the people giving them vote doesn't really matter. For private companies, they are in there for the business. So they would also want free electricity to be gone, and they want proper bills to be paid. As for many people, private companies will actually have a monopoly in the long run. When the private companies have a monopoly in the long run, it might be against the consumer's interest also. Over here, I just want to give you a very simple example. See, usually whenever we talk about privatization, should privatization be done or not, many people give this argument that when you privatize something, the cost will increase. Don't you think so? Everyone gives this argument that, see, when we have privatization, the cost will increase, the private players will have more profit, right? That is the first example that we have in our mind. But if you actually see, it does not happen like that. There are so many examples that you can take, and I can give you multiple examples to show you privatization actually does not increase the cost considerably. Take an example of telecommunication. In telecom, you have BSNL, then you have Jio, you have Airtel, you have Vodafone Idea. You can compare which company is selling you the telecom data, etc. at the highest price or at the lowest price. Air India, before it was acquired by the Tatas, it was a government company. Now, if you compare the flight rates of Air India with any other company, you will see Air India's rates when it was a government company were one of the highest. Same flight, same ticket, you could actually get at half the price at private airlines like Indigo, etc. So, our assumption that privatization will increase the cost is not always true. Privatization brings more competition, and more competition does not really increase the cost. So in that case also, it is an assumption that private companies coming into electricity will now have much higher cost of electricity. It's an assumption, because at the end of the day you have multiple people coming in, you have a lot of competition, the cost would decrease actually and not increase. The other story that I wanted to bring you from the Hindu newspaper today is from ISRO, where ISRO has said that most probably their mission to Venus, that is called Shukrayaan I, will be delayed to 2031. Now, Shukrayaan I was actually expected to be launched in December 2024, but they are all set to miss this because of various reasons. They are saying that we don't have enough funds for that right now. That is why we are now waiting for more funds to come in from the side of the government. And the problem with funds and the problem with this kind of a mission is you cannot just send any mission any time of the day. You have to wait for the most appropriate opportunity wherein the cost of sending the mission will be lowest, wherein the entire atmosphere will be set up in such a way that it is very, very easy to actually launch your spacecraft. That is usually called the launch window. Launch window means that appropriate time period within which if you launch your spacecraft, you will be able to launch it at the lowest possible cost without a lot of cost of the fuel. After 2024, the best possible window that we will have would be in 2031. That is why most probably we will wait till 2031, and this is the news from ISRO. In the meanwhile, there are other countries as well that are planning to send it by 2031. We have US and the European Space Agency. Them have planned their Venus missions for 2031 as well. On the other hand, for China, they are expected to send it much earlier by 2026 or 2027. This Venus mission, that is Shukrayaan, will be an orbiter mission. Please do understand, when you send these kind of missions, they are usually of two types. There are either lander missions or orbiter missions. Orbiter ones are always easier as compared to land. For example, the Mars mission that we sent was Mars orbital mission. Orbital means it will just orbit the Mars. It will not land on Mars. It will just orbit. Similarly, with Shukrayaan, it's an orbiter mission, so it will only orbit. It will not land on Venus as such. So that is why the orbiter missions are easier. When it comes to lander mission, as you saw in case of Chandrayaan also, lander mission means you have a situation where you have to actually enter the atmosphere. That becomes very difficult then to land properly, to have a soft landing. That requires much higher technology. So lander missions are usually very difficult to nail. Orbiter missions are the ones that are usually easier. So what happens is, usually when you see any space agency undertaking a new mission, they first go for an orbiter mission. Once that is successful, they then opt for the lander mission. So this Venus one will also be orbiter. Obviously, when you are just orbiting, the number of experiments that you can undertake are smaller as compared to number of experiments you can undertake if you land on the surface as such. So the Venus mission that we will have, it will try and study Venus's geological and volcanic activity, emissions on the ground, the wind speed, cloud cover, etc. This is not first mission to the Venus. There are many other different nations that have already sent their missions to the Venus. These are some of the examples. US, for example, back in 1962, from 62 to 74 had sent the Mariner series. Then they also had the Pioneer Venus 1, Venus 2. Russia also has sent it, so has Japan, and so as Europe. So it is not the first mission of the world by any stretch of imagination. It will be the first from India, but not the world. Now, why is it important? Why is it significant? As you know, the atmosphere of Venus is much, much, much hotter as compared to Earth. So the idea is to study it, to understand, and to be prepared for climate change. We are going to Venus to understand what impact would a higher temperature have on the atmosphere, so that we can come back and we can be very well prepared of what climate change challenges would Earth have to face. So the main purpose is to be more prepared about climate change problems that we might face in the future. Also, going to Venus will not be easy. Yes, Venus comes in after our mission to Mars, but this mission is going to be even more challenging. Why? See, Venus has a thick atmosphere and surface activity, and it is a very complex kind of a planet as compared to Mars. Yes, we were lucky to have, or not just lucky, we were very, very well prepared to go to Mars. We were successful in our very first attempt. That was very, very unusual. But with Venus, the challenges will be even more. The other part of the challenge is, see, when ISRO sends missions to all these places, like let's say the Mars orbiter mission also, just sending the mission does not really have any impact. What really matters is what are the different types of payloads that you are sending. What are the different types of experimental devices that you are sending there. For that, we need to increase our capacity to carry very, very heavy satellites, because with Mars orbiter mission also, yes, we were able to send it to Mars, but because we did not have any state-of-the-art payload, we did not have any state-of-the-art devices, we were not able to make any groundbreaking discovery. Similarly, with the Venus also, we have to make sure that rather than just sending, we should also have to send very important payloads there. The next article is from Economics, that is from the front page. The news is that our exports have dropped by about 12.2% in a year on slow demand. This is talking about the exports that India had in December 2022, which have declined by 12%. Now, please try and understand this very, very carefully. When we compare our exports and we say the exports have declined, please do understand this. If I say exports have declined in December 2022, we are not comparing with November 2022. Please do understand. The comparison is not from November 2022. The comparison is from December 2021. So when we say that in December 2022 our exports have declined by about 40%, by about 12%, what we mean to say is as compared to December 2021, in December 2022, our exports have declined. So do remember, whenever we have any comparative study, it is about that month, the last year. So month on month comparison is taken and not from the previous month as such. So here also, we have seen that the exports have declined. They have increased as compared to November. If you look at how November exports were, they have increased, but as compared to last December, the exports have come down. They have come down in merchandise, they have come down in other goods as well, which is a major concern for India. The government is saying it is because in December 2021, we had very high exports. Why? Because the pandemic was coming to an end, everyone wanted more products. So government is saying we had a very high base in December 2021. So compared to that, our exports will look lower, but it is not something that we have to worry about. Also, experts say that India should worry because other countries are not showing the same trend. Look at Vietnam, look at some other countries which are in the field of exporting textiles, etc. Those are the countries where we still see exports increasing. On the other hand, in India, the exports are decreasing. Government of India is especially more concerned about merchandise. Merchandise, textile, why exactly is this the case? Please understand, merchandise, textile, these are some of those industries which are labor intensive. Now, there are two types of industry. One is labor intensive. Labor intensive means that gives employment to a large number of people. Then other industry which are not labor intensive, they don't give a lot of employment. Any government does not want a decrease in labor intensive industry. Why? Because if labor intensive industry has a decline, then many people will lose their jobs. So for Government of India, any decrease in merchandise export is a very, very negative sign. Because merchandise export would mean that many people will lose their jobs because it is a very labor intensive kind of a sector. So Government of India has to work on ready-made garments, has to work on merchandise to make sure that we do not have this impact on our employment. Countries such as Vietnam, etc., that have been giving good competition to India when it comes to merchandise and textile, their exports are actually increasing. Now, there is one other thing that you have to understand here. A few years back, when we saw these news stories coming in that companies want to go out of China, India would expect a lot of companies coming in, but that has not happened. A lot of textiles, a lot of merchandise industries has actually gone from China to countries such as Vietnam or even Bangladesh. If you see a lot of international brands now, their clothes, t-shirts, jeans, shoes would have the logo made in Bangladesh or made in Vietnam. It might be surprising to you, but Vietnam, Bangladesh have actually made it a very, very good proposition for many of these companies to come to their country and set up these plants. A lot of textiles, t-shirts and shirts of very high-end brands, if you see their logo and if you see their sticker, it all says made in Bangladesh, made in Vietnam. Because again, these are labor-intensive sectors where a lot of people would have to be involved. Ideally, this was suitable for India also, because these kind of industries can be set up in rural areas also, giving employment to large number of people, but that has not happened in India, unfortunately. Even previous economic surveys have pointed out towards this problem. Now, I have taken certain graphs from the PIB press release to actually show you the comparison of our trade as compared to earlier years. As you can see here, our trade in December 2022 has decreased as compared to December 2021. Both imports and exports have come down. Similarly, for a period of April to December, you can see overall this year is much better than the last year, because last year, at least in the middle, we still had the problem of the second wave of coronavirus. So as expected, in December, from April to December this year, the situation has increased. Now, for your mains examination, I am not expecting you all to remember all these facts or numbers, but do remember the trend. Even if you don't remember the exact number, $72 billion, $61 billion, etc., at least do remember the trend. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? So on and so forth. Merchandise trade, as I told you, has again gone down in December 2022 as compared to December 2021, which is a cause of concern, and the Government of India has been looking to manage that as well. These are the important articles from the Hindu newspaper today that we had to discuss. Now, a couple of practice questions. I want all of you to try and write these answers in the student portal. The link is given here in the description of the video so that you can give each other feedback. The homework that I gave you in the comment section, I want all of you to write and tell, should Delhi be given statehood or not, and what are your reasons? First question, discuss the varied impacts of any slowdown in India's exports. Second, is there any merit to the argument that Delhi should be given a complete statehood? Critically analyze. Both these questions have to be answered within 250 words each. I have a question in the chat. How can Washington DC related to Delhi in terms of statehood? The example that I gave you was, in many countries around the world, their national capitals are not controlled by the central governments. Washington DC is also one of them. It is not controlled by the central government. It has a local mayor government that actually runs that city. The same can be an example with Delhi as well. It's in London also, it's in Paris also, it's almost the same. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining in for the session. I hope all of you have a good day. We'll see each other very, very soon. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.